there's a guy in the comments literally of that troll video who's like, oh, like, you would be awesome if like he cut off if he had like a troll spellcaster, then he cut off his own head and then threw it away so he could keep concentration because he doesn't have his head attached to his body. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, that is such a good idea.
That is crazy.
Hey, DM, I don't think anybody really likes my character. And I was like, oh yeah? And he goes like, yeah, and it's your fault. I'm like, wait, what did I do?
What's the one that's the Jane Austen game?
Oh, Good Society?
Something like that. I was like, what am I looking at right now? I was like, am I going to just be playing Mr. Darcy? Is this where we're going next? Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to a episode of Table Talk where Josh and I talk to content creators. And I think if I point this way, yep, see that symbol right in the middle? HNS, Hidden Nerdy Side, is our guest today. How you doing today, Mr. Hidden Nerdy Side?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jacob Tabletop?
Jacob Tabletop is doing well. How about you, Mr. Josh, over there on the other side?
I'm doing swell. I'm doing fantastic, you know.
See, we've each dream over here. Yeah, we've each used different descriptors, and I really like that.
Well, I barely know her, and
so. Josh. Every time I say a word with an ER or OR at the end of it, it's right there, and it gets me every time.
I mean, it's great. I absolutely love it.
Oh man. Well, the reason why we chose Hidden Nerdy Side is because you have a YouTube channel. You also have a Twitter account, which you got his handle right there underneath his logo. But your content focuses predominantly on making encounters / quests that I think you literally say steal this encounter. Is that part of what you say on your videos?
Yeah, I say, my whole shtick is like, build encounters you can steal, modify, and plop directly into your D&D games. That's the whole shtick. It's I mean, like, I do talk about, like, I rarely talk about other things, kind of whatever strikes me at the time. But yeah, right now the focus is on like encounter building and building quests. And yeah, basically I take a monster and I kind of just look at its lore, its info, and its abilities, and then think about something interesting, build an encounter, and then kind of toss it out in the ether for people to grab.
I know, like, I think the first time I saw you, we might have been like your 7th or 8th subscriber, I want to say. Like, you might have been in single digits at the time. And like, I saw your video, I want to say it was maybe the Giants one, Fire Giants? Was it specifically Fire Giants?
My first video ever was Frost Giants.
Frost Giants, okay.
I ended up doing a Fire Giant video, but the very first one was Frost Giants.
Okay, I knew it was a giant one, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. And I'm like watching it, and I was like, this sounds really cool, and I'm into it. And then like I looked at your sub count, and I was like, okay, this is not gonna last long down here. I was just, I don't know, I think I like immediately sent Josh a DM, and I was like, you gotta check this guy out. He's got some cool stuff in there. And that wasn't a Frost Giant pun, actually. Don't put that past me.
It's funny because like you keep I remember when I was first making that Frost Giant video, I was like, oh yeah, like I got it all out there and it's gonna be great. And then like I ended up publishing it, and like, you know, like I think there's like some good content in that video, but then like as I was watching it, I was like, oh god, like, and this is probably what every YouTuber feels, but it's like, I'm like, oh god, like this is terrible. Like what the hell is this? This is so boring. Like, oh my, like what's going on? And it's funny, like because I just recently released a video on trolls and stuff like that. And when I look at that video and compare it to like my very first video, I'm like, oh my god, like it has just gone so much better since when we first started. And but I mean, yeah, no, it's been fun, man.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened though. Jake sent me a text. It was like, this guy's really small right now, but he's definitely gonna blow up. Like I could see him blowing up. This content is really, really good. And that's honestly been the case. Like I haven't watched all your videos yet, but I kind of just, when I have free time, actually a lot of the time when I'm doing prep for the Rare Drop roleplay game on Sunday nights, when I'm Sunday mornings, I'm drinking my coffee, doing campaign prep or whatever, I'll watch some of your videos. and it's always great. It's always something that makes me like think. Like I always tell Jake, the D&D content that I love to watch on YouTube is something where it's not necessarily what the content creator says that gets me excited. It's the in between the lines. So it's like when you start talking about something, because you started talking about something, I then go a totally different direction. And I would never have gone that direction if I didn't first see you go in the direction you were going. And that gets me stoked, and like that gets my creative juices flowing, and I just get really excited about it. But obviously the encounter videos are fantastic. Even like the NPC one that you did, that was a really fun video too. Really informative.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks,
the
man.
artwork seemed to be a little bit different quality on that one.
That's a little bit, just a little bit. If you ever want to know when I give my artist a break, you'll know. There's a slight and subtle change between the art style from when I have my artist and when I try and do it myself.
I didn't notice a change.
No, well, really? Yeah, no. I mean, I got quite good, eh? No, it's I mean, awesome. I mean, I mean, I love to hear that kind of stuff, because I mean, like, even when I like, a big part of why I make these videos as well is like, you know, because it helps me jog my creativity and like get me amped. And like, even though that I think I've probably only used 2 of the encounters I've ever created in my like actual, or maybe not, maybe like 3 or 4 in my actual games, because usually all these encounters I usually just create for the videos and stuff like that, because I look at a monster, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and I look at monsters I've never used before, and I try and get you know, the creativity flowing. But it also helps me personally like amp up my games and stuff like that. And then I'll be like playing my game and I'll be like, oh, like, what if I just, you know, start like have a bunch of trolls like cut off their arm and throw them on catapults and throw them at each other? It's like, yeah, why not? Like, that sounds insane. Let's do it. Like, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah,
and, like,
Josh, you have to watch his latest video. I saw it earlier today.
I
was like,
I saw the thumbnail.
I was like laughing as he's saying this. I was like, this is great. This is a perfect like one shot, depending on how you want to stack everything.
That's definitely the zaniest the video. But like, what I love about like creating these videos and putting them out there is because like, kind of like what Josh is saying, how he's like, you know, he listens to me and we'll get an idea. Like, I put it out there, and then like I've seen you guys comment on it, and I've seen other people comment on it, and like they'll talk about because I asked, I'm like, everyone, like, what's your crazy idea? Like, how would you spice this up? And then people like throw their ideas in there. I'm like, oh my god, like, how did I not think of that? Like, that's insane. Like, there's a guy in the comments literally of that troll video who's like, oh, like, you would be awesome if like he cut off if you had like a troll spellcaster, and then he cut off his own head and then threw it away so he could keep concentration because he doesn't have his head attached to his body. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, that is such a good idea.
That is crazy. That's funny. Wow. Yeah, because I wish, well, I'm obviously commenting on a video. Please feel free to comment on this one. Helps like algorithms and all that fun stuff for discoverability. So when I really connect with someone's content, I'm always like, all right, let me think of something I could do. And when you specifically ask, like, how would you spice it up? I'm like, oh, okay. A lot of times I draw a blank because I feel like you kind of flesh things out really well to begin with. But I went with the mage direction too. Like, I just imagined this like crazy deranged gnome. It's like a mage or artificer maybe behind the weird experiments on trolls and all sorts of fun things. And it was just like, every time you ask me to do that, it does help to trigger those juices, like Josh was saying before. So I'm a big fan. So
no shucks. Oh, you're making me blush. I know you can't tell, but
maybe someday.
Oh yeah, there's red all over you right now.
Oh god. Oh, don't look at my H or my S.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not so much in the middle. It's like the Tommy Boy. Was it Tommy Boy or Black Sheep when he gets smacked in the face with a 2x4?
Oh god, I don't know. I forget.
I'm showing my age. Yeah,
that's old. Either of those are old movies.
Oh boy.
I've seen Tommy Boy. I don't know if I've seen Black Sheep.
Yeah, basically it was just a knockoff version of Tommy Boy. Same.
Well, I don't know. Like, I'm 11 years old, so I don't know.
Yeah, you sound it.
Yeah.
All right, so what was the first thing that kind of got you into Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games in the first place?
It was something like, I don't know. Maybe 3-4 years ago, something like that. Years ago or something like that. like I've always been like a writer. I've like writing things. I even like, you know, kind of self-published my own novel like back in my hometown. And it was like, you know, post-apocalyptic and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I sold it at like at local bookstores, and you know, that was very fun. And I've always been like a big fan of writing and a big fan of like film and television and all that kind of stuff, and like love fantasy. I forget when what it was, but like there's one day, and like obviously I've heard of Dungeons and Dragons my whole life, but I mean like I'm not gonna lie, like in like middle school and high school, I'd hear Dungeons and Dragons and I'd be like oh, like that's like I'm a nerd, but I'm not that big of a nerd. And then
like it's like a nerd. It's like the steroided version.
like if
nerds,
you play
right?
like, if you play D&D, like that's when there's like you can play video games and not technically be a nerd, but like if you play D&D, like you're at least a little bit of a little bit of a nerd.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I remember I was I think like one day I was just sick, and I think something in my recommended feed popped up, and it was for it was like a PAX game of Acquisitions Incorporated, and I was like, you know what, screw it, let's see what this is about. And I started watching this, and it was the one where they were all going into like the Underdark, and it was the one where like they were going down in this big metal beholder like spaceship thing, and they like go down to the Underdark, and they like fight in a tavern that exists inside of a dead purple worm, and then like Dritzo Durden comes out of nowhere, and he's deranged and fucked up from fumes, and like there's all this like craziness is going on, and then like there's some funny shenanigans with like this like weird Kuatoa thing, and like all this is going on, and then like of course it's by Chris Perkins, who's like, you know, one of like if you're talking about like the all-star like DMs, like Matt Mercer and Chris Perkins are the ones that usually will come up, right?
Yeah, you can't have that conversation without him.
Yeah, exactly.
You just can't.
Yeah, I was just watching this, and then like I just watched another, and then I watched another, and then another. I was like, this just looks like really just like a ton of fun. But the thing is, I knew that none of my friends would be into that. Like, there's no way. Like even like my buddy who I'd consider like being like my best friend, like he's like a huge gamer, but like role playing games, that would never be his shtick. And so I was like, like I have no one to play with, but this looks so interesting. And then eventually, during one of my jobs, I was doing marketing for a kind of like a Uber Eats, DoorDash type thing, like a food delivery service. And I went to a restaurant to talk to this guy, and then he was like shows me something on his laptop, and he accidentally had Roll20 open. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, like it's this whole thing where you can find people online and play D&D with them. And I was like, oh. And then I immediately went home and like made a thing. And then I hopped into like, it was like within 3 days, I hopped in my first game, and I was so excited.
Yeah.
And then I played it, and I was like, this is terrible. Like, what is happening? Like, this is so bad. Like, what is going on? Like, nobody seems like they're into it. It was like a bunch of guys, and it was like a bunch of guys and like a DM who's kind of just like, yeah, so like you go over there, and you know, he's there. So like what do you do? And I was like, oh god, like don't get me wrong. Like, I know everyone's not going to be a Mercer or Perkins. Like, I'm not that picky, but like I was like, put some passion, let's try a little bit, you know, like try and like, you know, paint me a picture a little bit. And like none of the other players were like really into it. And then I immediately went, screw this. Within a week, I built my own world, and I just DM'd myself because I was like, I'm not doing this crap. Like, I'm just gonna make my own world, and we're gonna do this thing properly. And yeah, oh my god, like I screwed up a lot. I definitely screwed up a lot because I didn't know any of the rules. I was just like, I got this cool
you
story.
Jumped right into DMing. That's
yeah. I was like, I didn't know any of the rules. So I was like, yeah, like we're doing this, and then oh god, like I got called out probably a dozen times a session, like if that. And then, but no, I think I've finally gotten to a point where I got the hang of it.
This is kind of incredible because we actually have a video on the Matt Mercer effect. And I mean, this is just the reskinned Chris Perkins effect, kind of that you were experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, like
basically the same thing.
No, for sure. Like don't get me wrong. Like for me, like, because I'm a pretty understanding guy. Like when it comes to me and like when it comes to any games in general, or like especially D&D, but just mainly anything in general, as long as people are like putting a little bit of effort into it, the quality to me doesn't really matter. Like not every DM is going to do voices. Not every DM is going to have like I was watching a session 0 between like Arcadum and like some people that he was like planning one of his campaigns with. And like, he pulls out these like lore documents and he's like all these like, I don't know, like 50 customized races that he's all tweaked, and like has like I don't know, like a 10-page lore document on every city in his world. I'm like, not everyone's gonna do that. Nobody, like, probably just him and like, like the top
Sure.
DMs have that. Like, no, everyone's gonna have that. All I care about is for me as a DM, like for what I want from a DM, and also as me as a DM want for my players, is you come to the game, you try your best, and you're just like being involved. That's all I care about. That is all you can ever ask for.
It's funny because like just as you're telling me your story, I just look at your channel name, Hidden Nerdy Side, and I was like, oh well that's got to be where that came from. It's like between that and just your experience to just being like, oh I could do better than that as a DM, and you just jump right in there. I was like, oh, okay. that's not, I wouldn't call that a very typical path to being a dungeon master, and I think that's so interesting that's the way it worked out for you. Do you get to play often, or are you kind of the forever DM?
No, I mean, I think I've probably DM'd 95% of my D&D career, and then like, but because I mean, here's the thing, like, again, because I don't have like, well, I will say one of the players in our group is actually offering to DM a one-shot soon, so that's gonna be pretty cool. But a lot of the DMs that I personally have experience, they're Roll20 DMs, and like as much as I love these services like Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds and stuff like that, I mean, it can be really hard to find a group of people where it's like, okay, we're all good to go, like we're all meshing together, and like, honestly, like there's one experience in particular where I actually can't talk about because like it is so just disgustingly disturbing that like I don't even like
well, now I'm scared.
Oh, like let's just like I won't go in depth about it, but let's just say like the horny bard in the group was the least of our worries. Like that was like, oh, like thank God the horny bard's talking, because like all this other shit is so outrageous. Like there's like the DM plant, like this is the very first, oh my God, this is the very first session too. We immediately go into this dungeon, and like it's like an erotic sex dungeon.
Oh.
And like there's like porn all over the walls, and he's describing this stuff. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what is it? Like here's the thing, like if that's like
session 0, there you go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm like, here's the thing, if that's your thing, like if everyone sits down and we're like, hey, listen, we're gonna play this really sexual erotic thing, like, hey, everyone's got their poison, that's cool. But it was clearly a group of people that had no idea this was coming. And so everyone's just like what? Like, what do I do? Like, and this like one guy's like PMing me like this whole time, just like, dude, like this is really uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, like I know. And like, because like it's me, so like I'm trying to make the best out of it. I'm like, oh, like how big are the balls? Like I don't know. Like it was just so like, like
grapefruits. Like, okay.
Like, it was so weird. I was like, oh no. But
oh my God.
Yeah, no. I just like don't get me wrong. I've had good experiences as a player. Like I'm talking about the bad ones. I've had good experiences as players, and I've had DMs that are good as well. But it's just like, more often than not, like, yeah, it's hard when you're just starting completely from scratch and you don't have anybody like that at all that is into this stuff, and it's like you're literally just throwing yourself in there and hoping for the best.
Sounds like a blind dating service.
Well, it kind of is. It kind of is. Yeah. You want to find the right DM match.
It's like, ooh, like, swipe right. No, not swiping left.
Yeah. And like, like even from like, I'm working on like another world right now, and because I have like my main group right now, and I love these guys and gals, but I had this other world idea, and I got so psyched about it that I just had to form a new group and play it. But of course, I didn't have anybody to pull from for my real world. So I just like ran on Roll20. I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's have a big. I had a big application process. I brought them all in, and oh my god, like okay, so this. I met probably the worst possible player you could ever hope to imagine at your table. So this guy, he was one of those guys that complained about everything if it didn't like go his way. And like, here's the thing, don't get me wrong, it can be frustrating when the dice don't go your way and like you're rolling nothing but 2s and 3s all night. But like, this guy complained about everything, like every bad dice roll, every DM decision, like every other, like he was like the guy who like judged other players' decisions. And then like he was also like he like was doing like random murder hobo stuff, and like nobody was vibing with it. And then, which is like, here's the thing, like, okay, if you're a bad player, a bad player. But then he you can't. And then at one session, I'm like, okay, I got to talk to this guy because like nobody's really meshing with him right now, and I just got to make sure, like, hey, like, do you understand what we're doing here? Then before I can message him, he messages me and he goes like, hey, DM, I don't think anybody really likes my character. And I was like, oh yeah, and he goes like, yeah, and it's your fault. I'm like, wait, what did I do? wait, how's this my fault? And he's like, well, I murdered this guy in the middle of town with all of these witnesses around, and then you said the town kicked out our party.
I was gonna say, would you give him consequences?
I was like, well, yeah, you killed someone in the town who was beloved right in front of dozens of people, so they kicked out your party. He's like, well, yeah, well, no wonder the party's not going to like me because we all got punished. I'm like, wait, what? How is this my fault? And it's a game, man. Like, it's okay. Like, you know, it's like, it's okay. Like, people, not everyone has to agree with everyone's choices. Like, we're all here. Like, honestly, when you killed the guy, I was like, this is kind of funny. Like, what the hell? Like, this guy just murdered. I was like, it was kind of funny because it was also like in the moment, and the guy was a dick. So like, you know, it was in the moment. So I thought it was a fine character choice, but then it's like, he just. Yeah, well, let's just say he also did some other stuff, so he's no longer with us because, yeah, he did some egregious stuff. But like, that's the problem with these online platforms are incredible, but they also come with, you know, some hiccups.
It's just the whole internet out there. It's you don't know what you're gonna find. It's that box of chocolates of internet. It's just, is this person gonna be like the one with the fruit inside, or is this person gonna be like the coconut or the hard as a rock thing? It's like, you have no idea.
Yeah,
and I have really bad RNG with internet things, so I'm assuming I would roll all natural ones with a random group.
Have you guys ever used those type of platforms, or because like I'm assuming you guys, you know, have been like mainly I've been playing for like a while, at least if I can remember from the Blue Dragon video you guys did. But have you guys ever like used those services like Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or anything like that?
Not in the way that like you're describing them. We've never tried to play with random people before.
My closest experience to that I could say, as I have done some play by post in the past, usually that was back with like some Star Wars Saga Edition. Even in some groups that seemed like I was on one site that it was so like rules lawyery, power gamey, like there was just no life in it. And it was like, if you made a decision that was a little odd, it was like, you get 4 dark side points. You're like, why? I crashed. Like, yeah, you didn't try to use the Force to help your piloting skill. I was just like, okay, so it was a mechanical choice, bro. Like,
oh god,
you know.
See, Jake is so old that he used to play by snail mail.
Yeah, here it comes. Okay.
Dearest Dungeon Master, today I would.
I pray this letter finds you not well. No, but that was the closest. But I found another site that I definitely connected with a handful of players, and they were very. I've always kind of been more behind like, yeah, combat is cool and all, and don't get me wrong, I love a great thinking tactically and trying to position yourself, learning all those rules, but the reason why your characters are doing what they're doing always resonated more with me. Like, why do I care about killing this, you know, evil warlord? Like, I know he's an evil warlord, but is there something else going on behind the scenes? Like, what are my character's personal stakes? You know, whatever the case may be. And you know, when you find a group that actually jives together really well, I feel like it's kind of like a special thing. You know, Josh and I met playing Destiny, really, which is funny though, because like we both grew up on Long Island at the time. We lived like 15 minutes away from each other, if that. But we didn't know, which is kind of fun. So,
yeah, man. Oh, Destiny's a solid game. I'm pretty excited for what's to come. Just give me Destiny 3 already. That's what I'm thinking.
We actually both quit the game, believe it or not.
Oh yeah?
Destiny 1 I loved. Everything about it. Even like I had my lull when everybody else was really excited about Taken King. I was like, eh. And then when everybody stopped playing, that's when I started playing again. But yeah, even through like the big content droughts, we were still playing Destiny 1. And then Destiny 2 started, and I don't know, it just didn't feel the same to me. And I also just I don't really have as much time to play video games as I used to. But
yeah, I know that's the biggest struggle.
that does it. And then if you're the rest of your raid groups and all that stuff seems to life just kind of pulling them in different directions. And then you're faced with LFG, which is basically back to where we were on the blind dating group finding for playing, you know, Dungeons and Dragons. You ever play any other systems or anything like that?
Honestly, not a ton. I mean, I tried Pathfinder once, like a Pathfinder one shot, and then I was supposed to do a Call of Cthulhu game, which I was really excited for, but that ended up not happening. So I'm really bummed. So I've mainly just been dabbling with D&D. I've been researching a lot of these things and trying to find like the best things from all these systems to like try and incorporate in my games. But it's just, you know, like one thing that I'm really I'm trying to remember exactly how it works, but a system I really like how they do their like hit point stuff is Starfinder. I think it's Starfinder because they do like the stamina thing really well, where it's like they do hit points and stamina, and there's like a big breakdown. And when I like, even though I don't use that in my games, like when I do narrate stuff, it's not necessarily like, you know, you stab him right through the chest, but it's like he still has 120 hit points left. So like, how's that? You know, so it's like,
Yes,
you know, it's
yes.
like, okay, he's getting really fatigued, or it's like, oh, like you've like broken his shield, or like, you know, that's
Sure.
how I kind of like to narrate my kind of stuff.
me and Jake talk about that a lot, actually, with the like we have a video on hit points specifically, and one of the things
Oh, I was just pointing for when the card pops up. Like, right there.
one of the things we mentioned in that video is like if you are that DM that is describing like your 100 hit point person as every time they get hit with an arrow, you know, that's, oh yeah, it sticks right in your chest, it's sticking at, you know, at the end of the day you're gonna look like the Nutty Professor in the acupuncture scene, just like I'm still hungry, you know.
So you have like 100 needles in his body.
Yeah. And you'll still have 50 hit points left.
You used that really well on Sunday, I want to say, because you had the boss cast Vicious Mockery on my character. And I remember exactly what you said, something like, yeah, but you're just kind of like starting to question whether you're here, why you're here, what you're doing, or like you're feeling down or tired or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's right. That's what psychic damage would do to you. I mean, it doesn't have to be like pain, but it's like sapping your will.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, I don't want to say barriers to entry because that's not the exact right word, but I think one of the beautiful things of D&D and role-playing games, and one of its like kind of biggest takeaways, is that you know, everybody does do it differently. And so when you do meet up with different people, and you know, and you don't say, it's like, oh, like I shot him, but you didn't talk about like, oh, he got hit in the chest with his arrow and stuff like that. It's like, well, I do things a little differently. And so like, you know, because everybody does everything differently, sometimes, you know, you can have like stylistic clashes that don't match up really well. And, you know, I saw a Reddit thread the other day about like the, I think it was just like a couple months ago, where it's like some guy was talking about the correct way to play D&D. And I didn't even bother reading it, because I was like, there's no way that this is going to be anything but toxic. Like this is there's no correct way to play.
You just expect to see the troll meme right there. Yeah. Like, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. The correct way to play D&D is the way that is the most fun to you and the people you're with. That is the only correct way.
And that comes in so many shapes and sizes. Like, there's definitely a place for the silly games. For me, usually I can handle those usually in like one-shot style doses when your name is like, you know, Bob the Warlord or something phallic, you know, that's like whatever. So that like those kinds of things, I tend to not be able to handle them in like a steady diet of it, but that's my own flavor. And some people like that's all they live on when it comes to these kind of games. And
No,
if everybody's on the same page, great, have fun with it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. Like whenever I structure my games, I like to say, you know, the main story is a serious one. However, like you can't be serious 100% of the time. So it's like throughout my world, like even though the main campaign is serious and all that kind of stuff, like throughout the world, you're going to come across some wacky NPCs. There's going to be the additional outrageous, nonsensical side quests just because somebody wants it that way. And at the end of the day, like I love like the deep RP, and I love when people like, you know, get into their character and like, you know, actually act the way their character would. And like, sure, it might be easier to just straight up murder this guy and take his money, but it's like, would your character do that, or like would they do the good thing? Like when people do that, that's where I have the most amount of fun, and it also makes things easier as a DM because like now I can actually play to what your character is into and all that kind of stuff. But like,
yes,
you know, at the end of the day, it's like you also got to have some fun. Like I got like in my first world, I created the head of the Wizarding College. There's a province called Nevicree in my first world that I created, and it's a Kalishtar province. And the head of the magical college there is a guy called Daedrin, and he is like an old wizard who's like in power and is in charge of the college just because he's so good and knows so much, but he clearly doesn't want to be there. And like the party like comes to him like all the time like for help and like to send him, because he is a big part of the campaign, because like they're up against these magical people and like he's kind of like the main authority, but like he's always like ditching out on meetings. He's just like this shredded buff old dude, and like whenever somebody annoys him, he polymorphs them into a turtle, and his like catchphrase is turtle time, and then just snaps his fingers and turns people into turtles. And like this outrageous like kooky guy, and he's also into like chronomancy, and so like he'll just like stop time just so he can like have a break in the middle of a meeting, and like he's just like I just can't right now. I can't even. He's like one of those guys. And like I love when you can have like a serious world but you can still have those characters, because they just like, especially like if you just come out of like you're just did this awful, not awful like but like, you know, a really hard part of the campaign and everyone's tired and dreary. It's just nice to like come back to like a tavern and just see this old kooky toothless dude who's just like, let me tell you a story, and then you just do these dumb things. Like it's just nice. It kind of breaks up the monotony.
I agree. I think the serious story is the thing, but if you make sure you enjoy the fun moments along the way, it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, and if you're also there for the memes, then meme. You know, like who cares as long as you're having fun.
I like to break up some of the tension too with like so sometimes in the midst of like serious things happening, like if you follow the Rare Drop campaign, there's some serious and like upsetting things happening with like Tabaxi and Jake's character and stuff, and all of that is real and serious and emotional, but then all of the Tabaxi are named like cat puns. So there's like Chaser of Lasers, Scratch on Post.
Yeah.
Scratch on Post.
Chaser of Lasers is the name of your ESO character, yeah. Khajiit. I was like, okay.
Reign of Cat Samir. It just
that's fantastic.
Beautiful.
But it's like it's those little things when I'm watching you guys like all with really serious looks on your face, and you're like, What is your name? And I'm like, I got this. Like,
yeah. Izzy's usually good for asking names. Yeah. But that's her character too. That's Melly. So
you know, recently I've actually I used to like have a little list of like 30 names that I could pull from in case there's like a character name that doesn't have one. But I've actually stopped doing that because I just think it's so much funnier. We're in the moment. I never know when it's coming. I'm like, oh, off the top of my head, Georgina, like just like right there.
Yeah. He's like, nope, that's not the woman's name, Georgina. It's George, last name Ina.
Ina, exactly.
Like, yeah. Like, I don't know why they thought that was confusing. Yeah. I know, obviously, do you make content anywhere else right now? I don't think so, right? Yeah, I know you have a Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Twitter and I have an Instagram, but
okay.
honestly, I got to get more. I get a bit more active.
Sure.
But I mainly do like the YouTube is like my primary source. You know, I've debated doing some other stuff, but another thing that I do, which is it's kind of like a little additional content if you like it, I guess, is I'm actually what I like to do, like whenever I have spare time, is I'll go on Reddit and I'll go to like, you know, the DM Academy or D&D type of subreddits, and I'll just like randomly just start answering people's questions and stuff like that. So technically, if you go on my Reddit and which is just, you know, hidden, I think it's hidden _ nerdy _ side, you'll actually just see a bunch of answers to a bunch of common DM questions that I just just went ahead and answered because I was bored and had time.
That's so cool. It's funny because based on the creativity and the videos that you make, I would not have guessed that you were only playing for a few years. So either you're just really great at marketing or you actually are good at this. I'm going to guess probably a little bit of both. Is involved in that. Do you have any other favorite content creators that like have like inspired why and what you make on YouTube? Like, and also I guess like what was it that inspired you to do this in the first place?
A big reason why I started getting into this is, well, first of all, because as soon as I started playing D&D, I was like, I know this is something I've been doing for a long time, and
you wanted to tell everybody the right way to do it, right?
Well, exactly, because everyone's playing wrong. There's only one right way. Like I don't like it wasn't so much because like, you know, I gotta get everybody and gotta show them all these things. It's more of like I just love talking about this stuff, and I know when I create these videos, like if I do it in the right way, people are gonna start engaging and they're gonna start talking as well. And it's really just more of like a creative outlet to like get all my stuff out there. And you know, also me as like a DM, like I know you guys DM as well, so you probably had this experience from time to time where it's like, oh, I have like all these ideas, but they absolutely would make no sense where we are in the campaign, and like we can't do this right now. And like, oh, I just thought of like this super insane Tarask encounter, but everyone's level 4, so that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, good luck with that.
You know, you know, and yeah, so it's just more of like a creative outlet for me. And like, you know, you look at some of the bigger guys in the D&D space on YouTube and stuff like that, and like if I could get there one day, that'd be great. But like really the goal is just to make stuff that's like enjoyable and to share my stuff around. And when it comes to this space, like I really like what Dungeon Dudes are doing. They've got like a really fellow Canadians, my Canadian brethren.
You know, you earlier before we hit record, you said university instead of college, and I was like, I didn't know he was Canadian.
He also said hey once during this.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Which raised a red flag.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah, I see what you did there. That's great.
You know, my Canadian side doesn't come out that often, and but except when I'm drunk, then it's like super hard. And then also like when something just like like when I'm surprised by something and I'm like, oh, no kidding, eh? That's awesome. Like,
I'm gonna put HCS. I'm gonna superimpose that over your logo for this video.
But yeah, the Dungeon Dudes. Like I watch all the guys. Like I like Dungeon Dudes, like Rune Smith, you know, Mr. Rex, you know, David Chappie, and then like, you know, how to be a great GM and Taken 20. But in terms of like for my style of videos, like there's guys like Nerd Writer who come up with like more essay style videos, and like I love watching those type of videos. Like he does a lot of film essay type stuff, but just like, you know, I've always been like one of the, like, you know, those losers that likes just to sit and listen to like a random guy talk about this one theory about a movie and like talk about like, you know, how deep is Inception, and I'm like, yeah, I got 12 minutes of my life to spare on this. Why not? And then I'll just like end up watching hours of video essays. And that's kind of like the style of videos I do. But then like, there's a lot of guys like you know, I'm always trying to like think of ways to improve my videos and make them different. So like, you know, the style of my video, like from like say my first Frost Giant video to now, is like drastically changed, and it'll probably still continue to drastically change because,
Sure.
you know, I'm always finding new inspiration. And when it comes to like, you know, for me personally, like we talked about Mercer and Perkins as like, you know, kind of like the Godfather DMs, but there's one DM that I think also should be up there, and that is Brennan Lee Mulligan. Are you guys familiar with him?
I'm not.
This guy, he does Dimension 20. So this guy is the guy who does the College Humor D&D show, and this guy is, if I had to say my DMing style, you know, out of those 3 DMs, whose mine's closer to, it'd probably be Brennan's, because like he's one of those guys who he can make you cry, but then like he's just making you laugh your ass off the whole time as well. And then like he's just super quick, and like a player wants to do something and he's like, all right, just give me a second. Okay, character on, let's go. And he just totally runs with it. And like he is just I mean, like, I'm not saying I'm as good as him, but you know, I'm just saying like just like you're there to have a good time. Like the rules aren't really that important. Like they're there for a reason. And it's like, you know, it's not like you can be like, hey DM, can I jump 50 feet? Cause it'd be cool. It's like, well, no, but if you pitch me something reasonable, it's like, let's roll with it. Like, let's go crazy. And, yeah, in terms of like, you know, the creativity and stuff, I mean, like I pull a lot from those guys. And I think that's important for a lot of, not just content creators, but just DMs and players in general. Like you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Like just find something you like, put your own spin on it, and then
just reskin the wheel. It's fine.
just reskin the wheel, put on a new coat of paint. And once you start like seeing how the you know, the best of the best do it, then you'll be able to come up with your own style.
Do you feel like DMing is something that you kind of feel like you have to do, like not because of obligation, but because that's how you feel most fulfilled in it? If that makes sense, because I know there are some people out there that they're like, oh, I really just want to play, or some people are like, yeah, but I need to be the DM. Like, and it's not like a desire to control, it's because that you just want to engage with the whole thing.
I mean, I really love being a DM because I've been a player before, and like, you know, building your own like character and like thinking of ways to like, I wouldn't call myself a power gamer, but just like more like I love finding like silly fun character combinations. In one campaign I was playing, he had this like homebrew race where it was like a half elf, half Aarakocra, and I played a Circle of the Moon druid / elements monk, but it was a reskinned way of the 4 elements because the official one sucks. But basically I wanted to play that just because, like, you know, once you get to level 5, because you go to monk level 5 and then druid for the rest, and because once you get to monk 5 you get your stunning strike, and basically I just wanted to fly up, turn into a bear, land on people and stunning bite them, as like because like that's just because you're allowed to do that because it's any melee attack, so you can bite, stunning strike, stunning bite, exactly. And so like I'm like, that just seems like such a wild idea and super fun to me.
Sure.
And then like there's like there's like this water whip thing, and so like, you know, I'd like fly up in my Aarakocra form, like water, like fly over a ledge and then like water whip, pull people, and then like just yank them off the edge and then fly down, and then, you know, you would like sneak up on a guy, I'd like turn into like a mouse and then like sneak up on a guard and then like bite a guard's ankle and stun him, and just like dumb shit like you know, like it's just like I just love coming up with those things. And, you know, like my first character ever, I'm kind of like a monk loving piece of trash. I love playing monks, but like my first character ever was an Air Genasi, and yes, I said Genasi or Genasi. It's not Ganassi. I'm just saying that because I know some of my players might watch this, and there's one player who says Ganassi. WebDM says Ganassi. It's not Genie, it's Genie.
They're both wrong. Yeah, it's with a J.
WebDM is great, but they're notorious and they know it for pronouncing things incorrectly. So
they want to do it, I think, at this point.
It's okay. It's not as bad as Tifling. But
I still want it to be Tifling because it's not a T fighter.
But yeah, but
that's fair.
It's thief, Jake. We did this.
Are you a Tiefling guy? Oh my god.
No, I
All
say
right.
tiefling because I know it's correct, but even though I
No,
know
I
it's
get you, I
correct
get
in my
you.
heart, it's wrong. That's kind of the way I have to say that.
Yeah, no. It's like it's not something I actually care about, but I just love poking fun at it.
That's
But
fair. More than fair.
But yeah, I was playing Air Genasi Monk, and like it was a really high powered campaign. We actually went past level 20 and stuff like that. And yeah, I was playing like an open hand monk. I think I multi-classed it with, I'm a huge multi-classer. Then I like multi-classed it with like a rogue, and then also like a rune knight fighter, so I could like turn like a giant and then sneak up on people as a giant, sneak attack them, stun them, just like all these like I just love coming up with those builds. Like as a player, I love doing that. But bringing it back to the original question, I ended up doing more DMing just because like I love creating my own world. That's how I kind of got into things, and I feel like I'm not one of those guys where it's like like if I can't do it, nobody can type of things. But there's something that's nice about having the control that depending on the player and stuff like that, maybe things are slowing down a lot, or like everyone's kind of stuck on this one thing. It is nice having the power to like facilitate the game forward and get everybody on the same page, and that part of it's all good. But I mean, like being a DM or a player, like as long as I'm having fun, I can do either.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way. I don't know what I prefer actually though, because I really love them both. It's funny because like sometimes when I am like a player in a game, I would be like, oh, I would like to DM this next part, just because like, oh, this would be cool. This is cool ideas. But I was always I know you mentioned before that you are pretty much always the DM. I was always the one shot DM. Like,
yeah.
the stream game that we're doing right now, like, is my first long term campaign that I'm DMing. But I was always the like, hey, you need a break? You don't have anything prepped this week? All right, I'll take care of it. Like we'll do something crazy.
So what's it like, man? How's the change going?
I like it. I like it. It's a lot of fun. I couldn't ask for a better group of players. That's honestly what it comes down to. Like, it's so fun when you have a good group of players, and if you played with bad players, which it sounds like you have,
the contrast gets like, ooh.
Yeah. I eventually, at some point, way down the road, maybe we'll do like a DM tell-all, and I'll get into some details about this campaign that nobody really knows about.
I love to get to, especially when it's not like spoilers or anything like that. I would love that. You could just make us be like, we missed what? All the things.
I'll just say it. I changed a lot of things fairly early on, and I'm happy with those changes. And that's because of like what my players did, where like I presented them with some options, like maybe an A, B, and C, and they were like, let's go this way. And I was like, oh yeah, all right. Yep, I see why you would do that. All of you guys are very invested in this. Let's do it. And it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, because now I'm DMing two groups. I'm DMing a group of 6 and a group of 5 right now. It's just going great. Like I am excited every single session to like jump into it and like come and like I'm one of those guys where it's like if I have investment, you'll get investment out of me the more you invest. Like because like I'm just like as soon as people get amped up, they're like, oh, like wonder what's gonna happen next session. I just get all antsy and I'm like, oh god, now I gotta come up with something awesome. What am I gonna come up with? All right, let's do something with this guy's backstory or this girl's, and like it gets me all amped up and like, oh, let's go. Now I got these two groups and it's great. As long as everybody's like really just invested and like kind of adding on and like there's not just that one person that has to do everything, everyone's contributing. I mean, like those groups are the best, you know.
You mentioned Call of Cthulhu earlier. Our previous tabletop or table talk guest was Blue Dragon RPG, and he's a big fan of Call of Cthulhu. So I don't know. Maybe we should try. I know I heard he's building a PC. And gets that built up. Maybe we can get a little online game going, something like that. I've never played it before. I have the player's handbook for it. I have one of the books for it. I don't know which
You
one.
have
it
like
is.
every system known to man in that folder.
I get, the Dropbox folder
like,
is just like.
What's the one that's the Jane Austen game?
Oh, Good Society?
Something like that. I was like, what am I looking at right now? I was like, am I going to just be playing Mr. Darcy? Is this where we're going next?
Mr. Darcy?
Yes.
Pride and Prejudice?
Yes. I was like, okay.
Pride and Prejudice, is this a D&D module?
I know that because I'm married. I've had to watch all those things. Which actually, I have to say... I have to say, side note, it expands your role-playing abilities when you look at different kinds of content and all sorts of things like that, and you become more cultured. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, absolutely. I got to beef with Pride and Prejudice.
There's a supplement to Good Society called Masks and Masquerade. Like, I don't know, something like that. Something with alliteration, and it's basically like if you wanted to play Zorro in an RPG, that's what it is. I don't know, man. I feel like that'd be good content. That's all I'm saying.
That sounds like a great Halloween one shot where everybody wears a mask and does a little, even if it's just a little cosplay. But that would be fun.
That'd
be awesome. If there's any DMs like listening right now, I gotta tell you, man. Like, try DMing a one shot. Like, I think one shots are so undervalued. Like, because everyone wants to like take on this big. Like, I want to build this expansive world, which is great and all, but like, oh god, like, I love running one shots, especially like comedy based one shots where it's like, okay, like the premise is going to be ridiculous, and like we're all just here to have like a good, like, that kind of actually helps, like, you know, when you're playing a really serious campaign. Like, I remember the very first group I campaigned, I ended up putting them through like a really tough few sessions, and I could tell that their morale was a little down. And I was like, oh god, like, ooh, I kind of like bit the bullet. And so I just created like this incredibly zany one shot, which ended up being like this guy, like they're in like my version of like the Shadowfell, and this guy lost all of his like demon animal friends. And so he had to they were stolen from him. And so like the party had to go find them for him. And they ended up running into a guy called Dark Ash, who basically had captured all of them and was using them to fight. And so whenever he would summon an animal, he would say like, "Go Rhymeworm," and it was basically just like a Pokemon thing where he beat up and captured all of his demons and then was using them as fighting animals. Those are things like in a one shot. It's like you go ahead, you try like these weird ideas, and like either they work or they don't. But it's like like it's such a lost undervalued form. DM a one shot for your friends. It's incredible.
Absolutely. This is another thing I was thinking about when you were talking about just like all the ideas and stuff, and that's why you started DMing a second game. Dude, my notebook is just filled with whether it's one shots, holiday games, or just other systems like Pugmire. I've got big plans for Pugmire.
I love it. No,
I just want to play. I want to play a lazy character there, so I could be a Barca lounger.
Oh, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Josh was killing it with the pun games at the beginning, but you're picking it up now. I like it. Can we get a pun counter at the bottom of the screen?
Bing, bing. Oh yeah.
I think that's gonna be one of my next few videos, is creating one shots. So stay tuned.
Oh, I would love to watch that one.
Yeah, me too.
Although, if I'm being honest, I love everything you've made so far.
Oh, shucks.
So whatever. It's like, I don't care. I have a man crush on you. I can't help it.
Oh, jeez.
So, as far as like YouTube stuff, what was the last? What kind of things are you watching when you're not watching tabletop RPG content? Or I guess you kind of mentioned that with kind of movie questions like how deep is Inception, but what's the crazy things when you start watching those videos and then you find yourself an hour and a half later in what we like to call YouTube hell, and you're like, how did I get here? Where are you? What kind of videos are those?
When I fall down the YouTube rabbit hole, it's usually like those videos that are just like 15 seconds long and about just like I can't even describe to you the genre because they're always just random clips of things that like you're like, where did this come from? Like who filmed this? Like where is this? I could like, even though they're 15 seconds long, like 2 hours later, I'm like, wow, I just watched 100 videos. How did that happen? And then I'm also a big anime guy as well. So I love watching like anime theory videos, and then also just watching anime and stuff in general. Like, and especially because anime for me is like, I'm a big newbie when it comes to anime. I only started watching like 6 months ago, so like I'm catching up, or maybe a year ago. So I'm catching up on all the classics. Like I'm just binging the crap out of anime right now, and then like anime videos. I've already polished off like dozens of them right now because when I'm not doing D&D stuff and not going out and trying to be social, which isn't happening right now because of the pandemic, uh, gives me a lot of time to catch up on anime.
It's like the hidden bright side right there. Am I right?
There you go. There you go. Ding.
Which classics?
Oh god!
If you could name one, or
well, I mean, like I first started because I watched Attack on Titan, and that's kind of like that was a lot of people's first anime in this like new modern era. But then I started watching stuff like Hunter x Hunter, and then like Full Metal Alchemist, and then Death Note. Like those are like some of like the more classic ones. Like I just finished like Beastars, that was good. Kage-sama Love is War. Oh god, Gurren Lagann. Oh my god, like I've been watching so much. I literally just finished ReZero yesterday. Like I have been absolutely crushing a ton of anime right now. I think so far the two best ones that I've seen so far are Made in Abyss and Vinland Saga. And I will say, if you're not an anime fan, I would recommend Vinland Saga to anybody, even if you're not an anime fan. That show was so unbelievably incredible, and it's only been the first season too, so I'm so excited to see what else happens. But like that show it's like a Viking show, but it's so surprisingly just deep, and like there's funny moments, but like, oh my god, like I remember at the end I remember I've never thought harder about something than after episode 18, and then the final episode I cried like a little baby. I was like, oh my god, like this is like, because they were just talking about stuff. I'm like, oh, this is what gets me. Like they got me at my core. This is what makes me sad. And I just had a big old cry. But no, man, I just think it's such a, like, don't be wrong, it's definitely not for everyone. Like when people are like, I'm not in anime, I'm like, I get it. Like it's zany, it's crazy. A lot of anime usually have like a similar style when it comes to showing things, and also like how comedy works. And then like, a lot of, especially a lot of like power anime, like a lot of their like beats and plot points are pretty similar. So I totally get people aren't into it. Kind of also the reason why I love D&D as well is that you can make things like so dramatic and so over the top and just so crazy. Like I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a weird controversy a while ago because I think somebody talked about building like a battle wheelchair or something like that in the D&D community, and then a bunch of people were like crapping on them, saying it's like you can't have a wheelchair in a dungeon. I was like, you can't have a wheelchair in a Dungeons and Dragons? Are you kidding me? That's where you draw the line? If a player wants to be in a wheelchair, I'd be like, fine. Like it's like you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, but then like you're getting a battle wheelchair. I'm like, okay, so that kind of counteracts it. That sounds cool as hell to me. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
don't limit creativity.
Like, oh god, out of all the things, like, oh my god, like you're gonna build porn dungeons, but you can't have a wheelchair. Like, this is insane. God. Like this is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, because you probably know it's that guy, the guy who's making the weird dungeons. Like, can't have a wheelchair. It's like, it drives me insane. Yeah. Like, I've seen some ludicrous things in D&D, but I never thought because like what especially surprised me about that is because this is such a accepting community. So it was just, anyway, that was weird. Anyway, the point is that you can have all these crazy things, and what I love about anime is because like even though things are just so outrageous and like the expectations and reality is like pushed to its limits, because it exists in this world, it's believable, and it just accentuates everything, and it makes everything important, and all the flashy animations and like someone like stubs their toe and then just like the screen freezes and their eyes roll back in their head and it's like, yeah, and I'm just like, yeah, I love that. Like, sure, why not? Like,
Yeah. If some is good, more is better.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have to say, when you said classics, I was expecting like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, like things like
Well,
that.
I've definitely seen Naruto, and I'm like halfway through One Piece. Like it's another massive one. I've watched them as well, and like those ones are good, but like you know, and there's definitely some high points. Like I like, I'm not gonna lie, the my first group of villains, like for my very first campaign, it was a campaign called the Five Rogue Mages, and the point of the campaign is that the party started out in prison, and the theme of the campaign was redemption and like power and like what people are going to do for power and stuff like that. But basically, they started out in prison. Their first job was to break out of prison, and then they had to break this guy out of prison and take him to this place where he's going to get picked up, and they had some adventures with him and yada yada yada. And then there they find there's going to be these five rogue mages. They kidnap this guy, and they find out this guy has really important blood and all this kind of stuff. And the whole campaign's based around hunting down these mages and trying to stop them from basically taking over a bunch of stuff. And they're heavily based off the Akatsuki from Naruto. So I have a lot of respect for those classics as well. I'm not gonna lie, I get a lot of ideas from my games from anime. Probably too much, to be honest.
It's nice to grab stuff like you're right. Like anime can be so completely ridiculous, but when you find that thing that you like from it, and you're like, let me just change this a little bit and then use it for myself and make it awesome, then it's great. And even like the battle wheelchair, if you've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's the inventor's son who I think he's in a wheelchair, right? And then they make his wheelchair like able to fly or some crap like that.
Yeah.
Like
that stuff's awesome to me.
That's just other ways to create cool things. But,
you know, if you're out there and you're watching or listening to this and maybe that's not your thing, that's fine. Just don't crap on someone whose thing it is. I think that's the correct English way of saying that.
Yeah, for sure.
I English good.
You do the English darn good, bud.
Yes.
That's what I love about D&D. Just and also, you know, not everybody has to create these crazy things in D&D, but like the possibilities there. And if you want to run a game where it's like there's no wheelchairs or whatever because it's just be too hard, like that's, you know, I guess that's fine. But it's like, dude, like a battle wheelchair, like I don't know how you can crap on that. That just sounds awesome. Like that sounds better than legs, to be honest. Like what are these legs doing? If you're not a monk, like whatever.
There's 100 million ways to pimp it out, so have fun with it.
If I was playing a character who didn't have the use of their legs, I would probably go a different route than a wheelchair, but I never would have thought of those routes if it hadn't been for the wheelchair. And that goes into what I say before about the reason that I like your content in general is not necessarily what you say, it's what I think of because of what you said. So that's why I like things like the combat wheelchair.
I think I was listening to a video about or where Chris Perkins was talking about like how to get into the writing business when it comes to tabletop games. And he was telling me about like there's a mage, like there's like some mage, and I think like he had an ogre sidekick or something like that. But the whole point was the mage was in a wheelchair and he didn't have the use of his legs. And then like eventually the mage, like, you know, you would like the ogre, or maybe I'm just like kind of randomly putting words in my mouth. Maybe I just did an idea that I came up with, but like you know, then like the ogre like picking up the mage and then like running around with the mage because the mage can't run for himself. Like that'd be an awesome idea. Like character flaws. Whenever I do character creation with like my players, I'm like, what motivates your character? What are your character flaws? Like all these things, they're so important because like having flaws is they just make your characters so much more human. And I don't mean human in the sense like literally a human, because I know that's in D&D that's something you have to address, but like, you know, like they add more personality and more depth to your characters. And I personally love playing characters that do have flaws. Like I had a character, I was playing like a homebrew summoner class, he had incredible social anxiety. Literally to the point, like, if you tried to speak to him, he'd be like, hey, how's your day? You'd be like, like he'd like be kind of like that, like just like really just couldn't talk to people. But he had a summoned demon that he accidentally summoned one day as his sidekick, who was very charismatic, and then would like try and push him into situations to like go outside bubble. And the whole reason why he's an adventurer is because his demon that he summoned wants him to like, hey man, like just get outside your bubble. Like it's all right. Like I'm here for you. Like just go explore the world. Let's try some new things. And he's like, dude, like I can't. Like it's just, I don't know. It's like nobody's like, it's just weird. Like I don't want to be here. Like like one of those things. Like they just add so much more life to characters where you have like actual flaws and stuff you can pull from, and or just like any personality trait in general where you can actually like really play into and like make your own. So yeah, battle wheelchairs aren't the worst thing I've ever heard, man.
Did you watch Disenchantment?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, I suggest it. And your sidekick, I'm imagining it as Lucy from that show. And it just sounds like a lot of fun.
So where can you be found?
Hidden Nerdy Side on YouTube, and then you see my Twitter on the screen. And my Instagram is the same as well. I mean, honestly, on any of my videos, if you have like questions and stuff you want to ask me, you can just, even if it's not even related to the video, you can just pop a question down there. I'll answer it.
Be careful what you ask for.
I mean, like,
how do I get rid of this bunion? That's, You're
gonna go back to the first dungeon. You'll be like, how big are the balls? And they're gonna be like, well, did you ask them to cough? And go on investigation.
Do they have elephantitis? Is all they need to know.
Oh my god. Yeah, no.
You can't really hide that nerdy side, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. But yeah, and then I'm on Reddit, Hidden Nerdy Side on Reddit. I think it's like hidden_nerdy_side. I think I just spread it up. But yeah, I go on there and just like answer general DM questions, like when people post on Reddit. So like you'll just see my responses and then like the questions above them. But like maybe there's a question there that's been answered, and you can just look at that. But I mean, right now I'm almost at 400 subs, so it's not like I have too many condiments to handle. So yeah, have any questions, just shoot them over. I can still handle them.
Yeah, and well, definitely get the J&J seal of approval there. We big fans of yours, and I think it's very obvious, but just between this conversation and the content you make, that you have a passion for Dungeons and Dragons, and just to kind of backtrack on what we said, the right kind of Dungeons and Dragons too, where you're encouraging your players to be creative, and you're just interested in putting together something everyone's going to enjoy and have a good time. So
yeah, and I'll just say, one thing, the DMs out there, but just because like we create an encounter, it goes this way, like don't always expect it to go that way, because players are always going to do things and they're going to change. And like, I know for me, especially when I just started, and honestly, even today, like, I'm not perfect, right? Even today, like players will throw me a curveball and I'll be like, what the hell? Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, just because you plan everything out and you come up with this incredible encounter, sometimes it ain't going to come to pass, like I'll bring it up again. Like the troll video I just did, like, yeah, it sounds like a wacky, crazy encounter, but like, hey, what if your characters knows how to speak giant and they're able to talk to one of the trolls and figure out something nice and come to an agreement? And then it's like, oh, okay. It's like, hey, listen, it sucks that encounter go through, but it's like, it's also great because your players are like actively engaging. They're thinking about other ways to do things, and you can also just save that encounter and use it another time. You know what I mean? So yeah, don't get discouraged if people throw you a curveball. Just even though it still gets me every once in a while, hey, that's just part of D&D, and that's part of the fun. And just roll with the punches.
One other place I'd say you could find Hidden Nerdy Side is if you ever want to watch us play Among Us.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say the exact same thing.
I was actually I was kind of bummed. Well, actually, first finish your plug. J&J Tabletop at Twitch TV. There you go.
Yeah, twitch.tv/JNJtabletop. But yeah, no, but,
So,
yeah,
I shouldn't have interrupted a plug. I'm such a pleb. Like how new am I at this game?
I interrupted it first, so there you go.
Absolutely. When you guys asked me if you wanted to like record this day, I was like, yeah. But then I was like, oh wait, does that mean we're not playing Among Us?
Can't be. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll have to do that again though. That's fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
On that note, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Go subscribe to Hidden Nerdy Side on YouTube and follow him on Twitter. And like, comment, subscribe to us here with this video. So, on that note, have a good one, everybody. Take care.
We have a video on hit points specifically, and one of the things we. Huh?
Oh, I was just pointing for when the card pops up. Like, right there.
I'm trying to make the best out of it. I'm like, oh, like how big are the balls? Like I don't know. Like it was just so like, like
you know,
so
grapefruits. Like, okay.
Like, it was so weird. I was like, oh no.
Be careful what you ask for.
I mean, like, you know,
how do I get rid of this bunion?
How big are the balls? And they're gonna be like, well, and go on investigation.
Do they
like,
have elephantitis? Is all they need to know.
Oh my god. Yeah, no.